Good evening, and welcome back to Footnotes and Folly, and to part 2 of our complete journey through the literature of ancient Egypt in the company of Wallis Budge. Tonight we go down into the Egyptian afterlife, into the most famous book the civilization ever produced, and the strange, beautiful machinery it built to carry a soul safely past death. Part 2 has 3 movements. First, the Book of the Dead itself, that great collection of spells and hymns, and at its heart the judgment, where the heart of the dead is weighed in a balance against the feather of truth. Then the later books of the dead of the Graeco-Roman age, the Book of Breathings, the Book of Traversing Eternity, and the haunting lamentations of Isis and Nephthys. And finally the Egyptian story of the creation, the tale of the god who first made himself, and then made everything else. In this chapter I have Budge's account of the Book of the Dead, not one tidy book, despite the convenient title, but a great Egyptian library for the dead, assembled across centuries, copied onto tomb walls, coffins, sarcophagi, papyri, amulets, and anything else that might help a soul on a dangerous journey. I shall keep Budge's order because the order matters. First what the book is, then what its chapters do, then its hymns and prayers, then the great judgment before Osiris, and finally the practical spells that keep body, soul, and crocodile at a respectful distance.
Budge begins with the name. The Book of the Dead is the modern title for a large collection of short and long compositions which the Egyptians called chapters. They were carved on pyramid corridors and tomb chambers, cut or painted on coffins and sarcophagi, and written on papyrus rolls buried with the dead. Champollion, the great French scholar, was the first modern scholar to study them seriously. He rightly saw that they were religious texts, but Budge says he was wrong to call the collection a funerary ritual. The title Book of the Dead came through the German Toten, Budge used by R. Lepsius for his 1842 edition of a Turin papyrus containing 165 chapters. The title suits the material because these chapters deal almost entirely with the dead and were written for the dead. They are not liturgies for living worshippers praising the gods on earth. Even when prayers and hymns appear in them, they are prayers and hymns imagined as spoken or sung by the dead for their own benefit. Their divine author, according to Egyptian belief, was Thoth, the god of writing and sacred knowledge. That divine authorship is why the texts were revered so deeply through Egyptian history. The chapters did not all arise at the same time. Some preserve memories of very old funerary customs, including the dismemberment and burning of the dead. Practices, Budge says, were common in very primitive times and then abandoned soon after royal dynasties were established. Many chapters may have existed in some form before the dynastic period, though no copies of such earliest versions survive. Egyptian tradition, already old in the early 18th dynasty, said that chapters 30b and 64 were discovered in the reign of Semti, a king of the first dynasty. Another tradition assigned their discovery to the reign of Menkora, the Mycerinus of Greek writers, in the 4th dynasty. Budge is confident of the larger point. Egypt possessed a Book of the Dead for kings and royal persons at least as early as the 1st dynasty, and some form of it remained in use until Christianity came into Egypt. Tombs of officials from the 3rd and 4th dynasties show that the Book of Opening the Mouth and the liturgy of funerary offerings were already being used. From that, Budge draws the religious conclusion. These Egyptians believed in resurrection, immortality, the religion of Osiris, the power of funerary offerings, reward for the righteous in heaven, and punishment for evildoers. The pyramid texts also prove, Budge says, that a chapter-divided Book of the Dead already existed when they were written. They mention a chapter of those who come forth, a chapter of those who rise up, a chapter of the Batu incense, and a chapter of the Natron incense. Whether these were part of the pyramid texts or whether both works drew from an older Book of the Dead, cannot be settled. But Budge thinks those 4 chapters belong to a Book of the Dead older than the pyramid texts. Behind that older book, Budge sees the religion of Osiris, which began in the Delta and moved southward into Upper Egypt. This Assyrian religion differed from the solar theology of Heliopolis. The Heliopolitan priests preached a solar heaven and taught devotion to the sun god Ra, rather than to Temu, the old native god of Heliopolis, or to Osiris, the divine man. The pyramid texts preserve the Heliopolitan creed, yet they also show that before the end of the 6th dynasty the cult of Osiris had overtaken the cult of Ra. Osiris, as Budge puts it, had triumphed. Different chapters came from different sacred centers. Chapters 30b and 64 were said to have been written at Kemenu, the city of Thoth. Other chapters came from Anu, or Heliopolis, and still others from Busiris and towns of the Delta. We do not have copies of the 5th and 6th dynasty Book of the Dead, but many chapters of the recension used in the 11th and 12th dynasties survive in cursive hieroglyphs on wooden sarcophagi, including examples in the British Museum. With the 18th dynasty, the book entered a new phase. Instead of writing the texts on coffins, the Egyptians increasingly wrote them on papyrus rolls and placed the rolls with the dead. Because so many of these rolls were found in Theban tombs of priests and others, the version used from about 1600 to 900 B.C. from the 18th through the 21st dynasties is called the Theban recension. In its early form, it was usually written in black ink, in vertical columns of hieroglyphs separated by black lines. Chapter titles, opening words, and rubrics were written in red. About the middle of the 18th dynasty, brightly painted pictures or vignettes were added. Budge values them highly because they sometimes explain obscure parts of the text. Under the 20th and 21st dynasties, full hieroglyphic copies became unfashionable and hieratic or cursive copies took their place. These later copies had outline vignettes in black ink. Some sections were still written in hieroglyphs, but Budge judges that the later scribes no longer had the skill of the great scribes of 1600 to 1050 B.C. The last complete recension known to Budge is the Saitic recension, which appeared about 600 BC and remained in use into the Roman period. In the Ptolemaic and Roman periods, priests composed shorter works based on the Book of the Dead, including the Book of Breathings and the Book of Traversing Eternity. These were meant to contain, in compressed form, the text necessary for salvation. Later still, the Book of the Dead dwindled into very abbreviated texts, almost illegible scrawls on scraps of papyrus only a few inches square. A grand sacred library, in the end, reduced to pocket notes for eternity. Budge then tells us where the papyrus rolls were placed. A roll might be set in a niche in the wall of the mummy chamber. It might be laid in the coffin beside the deceased, between the thighs, or just above the ankles. It might also be hidden inside hollow wooden figures of Osiris or Tasek or Osiris, or inside the hollow pedestals on which those figures stood. The book was not decoration. It was equipment. The reason for this equipment was the Tuat, the difficult region the souls of the dead had to cross before reaching the Elysian fields and appearing before Osiris. Budge describes the Tuat as crowded with gods, devils, fiends, demons, good spirits, bad spirits, the souls of the wicked, snakes, serpents, savage animals, and monsters. He compares it to pathless African bush country. No roads, no easy route, no helpful sign saying Osiris this way. In early belief, only a soul furnished with spells, incantations, prayers, charms, words of power, and amulets could hope to pass through it. Each tool had its work. Spells and incantations could bewitch hostile beings. Prayers, charms, and words of power could persuade other powerful beings to help the soul and deliver it from enemies. Amulets gave the soul strength, power, will, and knowledge so that it could use whatever help appeared. The object of the Book of the Dead was therefore practical and immense. To give the dead person everything needed to overcome the dangers of the Tuat, reach Sekhet Aru and Sekhet Hetep, the Elysian fields, and take a place among the followers of Osiris in the land of everlasting life. Egyptian beliefs changed over time, but the chapters were not modernized. Budge notes that the religion of the 18th dynasty was generally more spiritual than that of the 12th, yet chapters used in the 12th dynasty were still being used in the 18th and even in the 26th. In religion, he says, the Egyptian forgot nothing and abandoned nothing. What had been good enough for the ancestors was good enough for the present dead. The result is that the Book of the Dead preserves layers of Egyptian religion from the earliest, roughest strata down to the final decline of Egyptian power. Budge inserts a vignette here from chapter 92 of the Book of the Dead, Annie and his soul leaving the tomb, from the papyrus of Annie in the British Museum. It is a useful image for the whole chapter. The dead person is not merely resting. He is setting out, and the book in his tomb is the passport map, phrase book, charm bag, and legal brief. Budge next gives a summary of the chief chapters in the Theban recension, which contains about 190 chapters. Many have rubrics explaining what effect their recital will have and what ceremonies must be performed while they are recited. Chapter 1 contains formulae for the day of the funeral. Chapter 151 pictures the arrangement of the mummy chamber and gives the text to be said there. Chapter 137 describes magical ceremonies in the mummy chamber and the magical objects placed in niches in the four walls. Chapter 125 shows the judgment hall of Osiris and supplies the declarations of innocence made before the 42 judges. Chapters 144 to 147, 149, and 150 describe the halls, pylons, and divisions of the kingdom of Osiris, naming the gods who guard them and giving the formulae the deceased must speak at each point. Chapter 110 gives a picture of the Elysian fields and a text describing their towns and places. Chapter 5 lets the deceased avoid doing work. Chapter 6 makes a figure work for him instead. One hears, faintly, the first theological ancestor of delegating one's inbox. Chapter 15 contains hymns to the rising and setting sun, plus a litany of Osiris. Chapter 183 is another hymn to Osiris. Chapters 2, 3, 12, 13, and others enable the deceased to move freely in the other world. Chapter 9 secures passage in and out of the tomb. Chapter 11 overthrows enemies. Chapter 17 is a major theological chapter on the origin of God, the gods, heaven, and earth, and it records differing Egyptian opinions about divine and mythological beings. Budge says its reason for inclusion is not clear, but its importance is beyond doubt. Chapters 21 and 22 restore the deceased's mouth, and Chapter 23 enables him to open it. Chapter 24 gives him words of power, and Chapter 25 restores his memory. Chapters 26 through 30b return his heart and protect it from heart stealers who might carry it off or damage it. Chapters 29 and 30b were cut onto heart-shaped amulets. Chapters 31 and 32 drive away crocodiles, and Chapters 33 to 38 with Chapter 40 protect against snakes and serpents. Chapters 41 and 42 preserve a person from slaughter in the other world. Chapter 43 protects against decapitation. Chapter 44 preserves him from the second death. Chapters 45, 46, and 154 protect the body in the tomb from rot, decay, and worms. Chapter 50 saves him from the headsman in the tuat, and Chapter 51 keeps him from stumbling. Chapters 38, 52 to 60, and 62 secure air and water for him in the tuat, while Chapter 63 saves him from drinking boiling water there. Chapters 64 to 74 give power to leave the tomb, overthrow enemies, and come forth by day. Chapters 76 to 89 give the deceased power to transform himself into the light, God, the primeval soul of God, Ta, Osiris, a golden hawk, a divine hawk, a lotus, the Benu bird, a heron, a swallow, a serpent, a crocodile, or any being or thing he chooses. Chapter 89 also lets the soul rejoin its body whenever it wishes, and Chapters 91 and 92 secure the going forth of the soul and spirit from the tomb. Chapters 94 to 97 make the deceased an associate of Thoth. Chapters 98 and 99 secure the magical boat and the celestial ferryman, who carries him across the river in the Tuat to the island of fire, where Osiris lives. Chapters 101 and 102 give access to the boat of Ra. Chapters 108, 109, 112, and 116 enable him to know the souls, that is, the gods of the east and west, and of the towns Pi, or Buto, Nekon, or Alethiaspolis, Kemenu, or Hermopolis, and Anu, or Heliopolis. Chapters 117 to 119 help him find his way through Rastau, part of the kingdom of Seker, the god of death. Chapter 152 lets him build a house. Chapter 132 gives him power to return to earth and see it. Chapter 153 lets him escape the fiend who goes about catching souls in a net. Chapters 155 to 160, 166, and 167 are amulet spells for objects including the male Tet, the female Tet, the vulture, the collar, the scepter, the pillow, and the pectoral. These give the deceased powers of Osiris, Isis, and other gods, restore his heart, and lift up his head. Chapter 162 keeps heat in the body until the day of resurrection. Chapters 175 and 176 give everlasting life and escape from the second death. Chapter 177 raises up the dead body, and Chapter 178 raises up the spirit, soul. The remaining chapters perfect the spirit, soul, grant it celestial powers, let it enjoy fellowship with the gods as their equal, and allow it to share in their occupations and pleasures. That is Budge's compressed catalog, compact yes, but not exactly light luggage. Budge then turns from catalog to examples. He first notes an illustration of Herod, the first priest, king, and Queen Nechemet reciting a hymn to the rising sun. The apes in the vignette represent the spirits of the dawn. Then he quotes the opening hymn to Osiris from the Papyrus of Ani. In plain English, the hymn glorifies Osiris Nefer, the great god dwelling in Abydos, King of eternity, Lord of everlastingness, whose being lasts for millions of years. The hymn names Osiris as eldest son of Nut, the sky goddess begotten by Keb, the earth god. He is the hereditary chief, lord of the crowns of south and north, lord of the white crown, prince of gods and men, bearer of scepter, whip, and the rank of his divine fathers. His heart in sentiment, the other world, is to be content because Horus, his son, is established on his throne. He is crowned lord of Tatu or Busiris and ruler in Abydos. Through Osiris, says the hymn, the world flourishes before Nebuchadnezzar, the Lord to the uttermost limit. He leads what already exists and what has not yet come into being. He draws along the earth by Mot, the goddess of physical and moral law and the personification of conscience in his name Seker. He is mighty and terrible in his name Osiris, and enduring forever in his name Nefer. The hymn then hails him as King of Kings, Lord of Lords, Prince of Princes, ruler of the world and Akkad, another name for the other world. Osiris' body is imagined as bright shining metal, his head is azure blue with turquoise brilliance about him. He is an of millions of years, whose body pervades all things and whose face is beautiful in Tasesser, the Holy Land, meaning the kingdom of Osiris. The prayer asks him to grant Ani splendor in heaven, power on earth, and triumph in the other world. Ani asks to sail down to Tatu as a living soul, sail up to Abydos as the Benu bird, pass freely through the pylons of the lords of the other world, receive bread, cakes in the house of coolness, receive offerings in Anu or Heliopolis, and possess forever a homestead in Sek, Hidaru with wheat and barley. Another hymn to Osiris from the Papyrus of Hunefer presents the gods coming to Osiris, bowing low and fearing him. They withdraw before the terror of Ra that surrounds him, and his victory is over their hearts. Life is with him, offerings of food and drink follow him, and his due is offered before him. The speaker comes holding truth with no deceit in the heart. He has committed no sin in the land and has defrauded no one. He speaks as Thoth, the perfect scribe, pure of hands, Lord of purity, destroyer of evil, scribe of truth. What he abominates is sin. Budge next gives an address and litany introducing chapter 15 in the Papyrus of Ani. The address praises Osiris as Lord of Eternity, Nefer, Heracuti, a god of many forms and majestic attributes, Ta Seker Tem and Heliopolis, Lord of the Shetta Shrine, creator of Het, Kut, or Memphis, and of the gods who dwell there. He is guide of the other world, praised by the gods when he sits in the sky. Isis embraces him contentedly and drives fiends away from the mouths of his paths. He turns toward Amentet, the hidden land of the west, and makes the earth shine like refined copper. The dead rise to look at him, breathe air, and behold his face when his disk rises on the horizon. Their hearts are at peace because they see him, eternity and everlastingness. The litany then offers 9 acts of homage. First, to the Lord of the Decans, the 36 star gods in Heliopolis, and of the heavenly beings in Kara, Old Cairo, to the hidden god Untai. After this and each petition comes the response, grant me a path where I may pass in peace, for I am just and true, I have not knowingly spoken lies or acted with deceit. Second, homage to an Anantes, Heracute, who strides with long strides over heaven. Third, homage to the everlasting soul in Tatu, Unnefer, son of Nut, lord of Akkad. The fourth homage honors Osiris ruling over Tatu, with the Urt crown fixed on his head, one who creates his own protection and dwells there in peace. The fifth honors the lord of the Acacia. The Seker boat, also called the Henu boat, is on its sledge, the evil fiend is turned back, and the eye of the sun god rests on its throne. The sixth honors the mighty one in his hour, Prince great and mighty, dweller in Amrutef, lord of eternity, creator of everlastingness, lord of Hensu or Heracleopolis. The seventh homage is to the god who rests upon truth, lord of Abydos, whose body is joined to Tusesert and to whom fraud and deceit are abominable. The eighth is to the dweller in his boat, who leads the Nile from its source, whose body shines with light, and who dwells in Nekhen or Ilethi-Aspolis. The ninth hails Osiris as creator of the gods, king of the south, king of the north, conqueror, governor of the world in his gracious seasons, and lord of Abui, the heaven of Egypt. Budge then gives the general character of a funerary hymn to Ra. The hymn greets Ra in the form of Khepra, creator of the gods. He rises, shines, and illuminates his mother, the sky. He is crowned king of the gods. Leathernut welcomes him with bowings, Manu, the land of sunset, receives him gladly, and Mud embraces him morning and evening. The gods of the temple of the soul, meaning heaven, weigh heaven and earth in a balance and provide celestial food. Tatanen, the ancient earth god, one creator of man and maker of the gods of south, north, west, and east, is called with the gods to acclaim Ra, lord of heaven, prince and creator of the gods, as he rises in the morning boat, Anjit. All who dwell in the heights and depths worship Ra. Thoth and Ma lay down his course each day forever. His enemy the serpent is cast into fire, the fiend falls headlong. His arms are chained, Ra hacks off his legs, and the Mesubetchit, the followers of Set, shall not rise again. The temple of the aged god and Anu keeps festival, and rejoicing sounds in the great house. The gods shout when they see Ra rising and filling the world with light. The holy god goes forth to Manu and brightens the earth each day at his birth, journeying to the place where he was yesterday. The worshipper asks Ra for peace and for the privilege of seeing his beauties. He asks to appear on earth, to strike the eater of the ass, a mythic monster, serpent connected with the form of the sun god, to crush the serpent Seba, and to destroy Apep, the serpent who tried each morning to swallow the sun until the sun god's spell made him powerless. He asks to see the Abtu and antfish, which swim before the solar boat to warn the god of danger, and to see Horus steering the boat with Thoth and Mot standing on either side. Annie then asks to hold the bow of Ra's evening boat and the stern of his morning boat, which is a careful way of asking not to miss either voyage. He asks that his Ka may see the sun's disk and the moon god regularly each day, that his soul may come forth and go wherever it pleases, that his name may be read from the list of those receiving offerings, and that offerings may be set before him as before the followers of Horus. Finally, he asks for a seat in the boat of Ra on the day the god goes forth, and to be received in the presence of Osiris in the land where truth is spoken. The prayers of the Book of the Dead, Budge says, are often strings of petitions for offerings to be made in the tomb. The underlying idea is that priestly words transform the offerings, so that their spiritual substance becomes food for the dead. Many prayers ask for the comforts and general well-being of the dead, but some ask for forgiveness of sins committed in the body. Budge's best example is chapter 126, addressed to the 4 ape gods who sit in the bow of Ra's boat. These 4 ape gods convey truth to Nebuchadnezzar, judge the speaker's weakness and strength, satisfy the gods with the flame of their mouths, offer holy offerings to the gods and sepulchral meals to spirit souls, live on truth, feed on truth of heart, and hate deceit, fraud, and wickedness. The deceased asks them to remove his evil deeds, put away the sin that deserved stripes on earth, destroy any evil clinging to him, and let no barriers stand between them and him. He asks to pass through the ambit chamber and to Rastau, pass through the secret places of Amentet, and receive cakes, ale, and sweetmeats like praised spirit souls. The 4 ape gods answer that they have done away with his wickedness, put away his punishable sin, and destroyed the evil that clung to him. He may enter Rastau, pass through the secret gates of Amentet, receive cakes, ale, and sweetmeats, go in and out as he wishes, and have his name proclaimed each day in the horizon. Even paradise in this literature has paperwork, but the paperwork is beautiful. My heart, my mother, my heart by which I came into being. Let no one stand against me at my judgment. Let there be no opposition before the Tchau, the officers of Osiris. Do not be separated from me before the keeper of the balance. You are my Ka, the vital power dwelling in my body, the god Ke, Nemu who knitted together and strengthened my limbs. Come with me into the happy place. Let the Shenet officers who decide human destinies not make my name stink before Osiris. Let the weighing be satisfactory for us. Let there be joy for us at the weighing of words. Let no false thing be spoken against me before Osiris, the great god, Lord of Amentet. Truly you shall be great when you rise up, declared a speaker of truth. That prayer belongs to chapter 30b, spoken when the deceased stands in the hall of judgment, watching Anubis and Thoth weigh his heart in the great scales before Osiris and the great company of the gods. In many papyri a rubric follows. The prayer is to be spoken over a greenstone scarab set in a band of silver metal, silver gold, and hung by a ring from the deceased's neck. Some rubrics order the scarab to be placed in the mummy's breast in place of the heart, and say that it will open the mouth of the deceased. The chapter had a famous pedigree. A tradition as old as the 12th dynasty said it was discovered at Kemenu, Hermopolis Magna, by Heratadaf, son of Khufu, in the reign of Menkaure. It was supposedly cut in hieroglyphs inlaid with lapis lazuli on an alabaster block set under the feet of Thoth. No wonder it was thought powerful. Budge notes that Egyptians were still reciting it in the Ptolemy period, so it remained in use for nearly 4,000 years and may be the oldest prayer in the world. Under the Middle and New Kingdoms, the prayer was cut onto hard green stone heart scarabs. Many surviving scarab versions are incomplete and full of errors. Budge's explanation is wonderfully practical. The prayer had become a spell, a word of power, and the stone itself an amulet. Many scarabs have blank spaces left for names, proving that they were kept as undertaker stock in trade, ready for clients who needed a heart scarab in a hurry. Death, alas, has always had a retail department. Budge then turns to chapter 125, the great declaration before Osiris, which he calls a remarkable composition and evidence of the lofty moral ideas of 18th dynasty Egypt. The deceased stands in the Usuk Mahdi, the hall of the two Mahdi goddesses, one for Upper Egypt and one for Lower Egypt. There Osiris and his 42 judges judge the souls of the dead. Before the verdict, the deceased declares that he has not violated the moral and religious laws of his country. Budge compares the form of the declaration with ordeals still known in parts of Africa in his own day, where a condemned person protests innocence before drinking red water. Homage to you, great God, Lord of Mahdi. I have come to you and brought myself here to behold your beauties. I know you, your name, and the names of the 42 gods who dwell with you in this hall of truth, who guard sinners and who, in the old formula, feed upon their blood on the day when lives are reckoned before Nefer Osiris. I have come with truth. I have destroyed wickedness for you. I have not done evil to men. I have not oppressed my family. I have not done wrong instead of right. I have not been a friend of worthless men. I have not wrought evil. I have not tried to make myself over-righteous. I have not pushed my name forward for high offices. I have not treated servants evilly. I have not defrauded a man in trouble. I have not done what is taboo to the gods. I have not caused a servant to be ill-treated by his master. I have not caused pain. I have not let anyone go hungry. I have made no one weep. I have not murdered. I have not ordered murder. I have inflicted pain on no man. I have not robbed temple offerings. I have not stolen the cakes of the gods or carried off cakes offered to spirits. I have not committed fornication or impurity in holy places. I have not diminished the bushel. I have not stolen or altered land. I have not encroached on my neighbor's fields. I have not tampered with weights or the pointer of the scales. I have not taken milk from children's mouths. I have not driven cattle from pasture. I have not trapped birds in the preserves of the gods. I have not caught fish with bait made from fish of their own kind. I have not stopped water when it should flow. I have not breached a running canal. I have not put out a fire when it should burn. I have not violated the appointed times for chosen meat offerings. I have not driven cattle from the property of the gods. I have not repulsed the god in his manifestations. I am pure. I am pure. I am pure. I am pure. Budge adds that the 42 gods represent Egypt's 42 nomes or districts. In the second part of chapter 125, the deceased repeats many of the declarations, but each is attached to a named judge. Budge gives examples. Hail you of the long strides from Heliopolis, I have not committed sin. Hail you embraced by flame from Kara, I have not robbed with violence. Hail nose from Hermopolis, I have not done violence. Hail eater of shadows from the Kurdi, I have not thieved. Hail stinking face from Rastau, I have not slain man or woman. Hail crusher of bones from Hensu, I have not lied. Budge says little is known about most of these 42 gods, but they were probably local gods or spirits, each representing a nome. Their names were added so that the 42 judges would stand for all Egypt. The judgment is therefore both cosmic and local. A person is not merely pleading before heaven in general, but before the full moral geography of the country. The third part of chapter 125 becomes more personal. The righteous and sinless heart addresses the gods in the hall of Mahdi. I know you and your names. Do not let me fall beneath your knives. Do not bring my wickedness before the God you follow. Let no evil come on me through you. Declare me innocent before Nebuchadnezzar, because I did right in Tamra, Egypt. I did not blaspheme God, and I did not speak evil of the king in his day. The speaker then honors the sinless gods who live and feed on truth before Horus in his disk. He asks deliverance from Baba, who feeds on the entrails of the mighty on the day of the great judgment. He insists that he has not offended the gods, done evil, or borne false witness. He lives on truth and feeds on truth. He has performed the commandments of men and the things that please the gods. He has made the god peaceful by doing the god's will. Then come the works of mercy. The speaker says he has given bread to the hungry, water to the thirsty, clothing to the naked, and a ferry boat to the man who had none. He has made offerings to the gods and funerary meals for the spirits. Therefore he asks the gods to be his deliverers and protectors, to make no accusation against him before the great God. His mouth and hands are clean, so those who see him should say, "Come in peace, come in peace." He has testified before Herf-Haf, the celestial ferryman who carries only righteous souls to the island of Osiris, and Herf-Haf has approved him. He has seen the things under the spreading branches of the Persea tree in Rastow. He prays to the gods and knows their persons. He has come forward to declare truth and to set up the balance, the scale in which the heart is weighed, on its stand in Akkert, a region of the other world near Heliopolis. Addressing Osiris directly, the deceased hails him as the god exalted on his standard, Lord of the Eight of Crown, whose name is Lord of the Winds. He asks to be delivered from Osiris' envoys, who inflict harm with uncovered faces. He says he has done right for the Lord of Truth. He has purified his front parts and back parts with holy water and cleansing themes. His inward parts have been immersed in the lake of truth. No member of his body lacks truth. He has purified himself in the pool of the south and rested in the northern town in the field of the grasshoppers, where the sailors of Ra bathe at the 2nd hour of night and the 3rd hour of day. At this point, one might think moral innocence should be enough to enter the holiest part of the Hall of Truth, where Osiris sits enthroned. Budge says no. The deceased must still recite the magical names of various parts of the hall. Budge cannot resist observing that the priest has thrust magic into one of the most sacred texts. Only then does Thoth, the great recorder of Egypt, approach and ask why the deceased has come. The answer is that he has come to be mentioned to the god. Thoth asks the identifying question, who is he whose heaven is fire, whose walls are serpents, and whose floor is a stream of water? The deceased answers Osiris. He is then allowed to advance and be introduced to Osiris. As reward for a righteous life, sacred food proceeding from the Eye of Ra is assigned to him. Living on the food of the god, he becomes a counterpart of the god. Budge closes the chapter with further specimens, because the Book of the Dead is filled from first to last with spells and prayers for preserving the mummy and securing everlasting life. From chapter 154 comes a prayer to Osiris. Osiris lives with his members. He did not decay, turn to worms, waste away, corrupt, or putrefy. The speaker identifies with Khepra and says his own members shall have everlasting existence. He shall not decay, rot, putrefy, become worms, or see corruption before Shu. The same preservation prayer continues through the body in detail. The speaker shall have being, live, flourish, and wake in peace. His inward parts shall not perish. He shall not suffer injury. His eyes shall not decay. The form of his face shall not disappear. His ears shall not become deaf. His head shall not be separated from his neck. His tongue shall not be carried away. His hair shall not be cut off. His eyebrows shall not be shaved off. No baleful injury shall come upon him. His body shall be established and shall neither crumble nor be destroyed on earth. From chapter 175, Budge quotes a passage about everlasting life. Ani has arrived in the Tuvath and speaks with Thoth and Temu. He asks what kind of country this is. There is no water, no air, an unfathomable depth, black as the blackest night, where people wander helplessly. A man cannot live there in quietness of heart, nor can affections be satisfied. After addressing Osiris, Ani asks how long he shall live. The god answers that it is decreed he shall live for millions of years, a life of millions of years. As an example of a spell used with an amulet, Budge quotes chapter 156. The amulet is the Tet, representing part of the body of Isis. The spell says that the blood of Isis, the power of Isis, and the words of power of Isis shall be strong to protect the mighty one, meaning the mummy, and guard him from anything taboo or hateful to him. The rubric orders the spell to be said over a Tet made of carnelian, steeped in water of Anchem flowers, set in a frame of sycamore wood, and placed on the deceased's neck on the day of the funeral. If this is done, the powers of Isis protect the body, and Horus, son of Isis, rejoices when he sees the deceased. No hidden places are closed to him on his journey. One hand is toward heaven and the other toward earth, regularly and continually. The rubric ends with a secrecy warning. Do not let anyone who is with you see it. A few words are broken away, but the meaning is clear enough. Sacred power likes its privacy. Finally, Budge gives spells against crocodiles, serpents, and other reptiles. Chapter 31 addresses the crocodile Sui. Away with you, retreat, get back, and do not come near me, for I have life through the words of power within me. If I utter your name to the great God, he will make you come before the divine messengers Beti and Herkamon. Heaven rules its seasons. The spell has power over what it masters. My mouth rules the spell inside it. My biting teeth are like flint knives, and my grinding teeth are like those of the wolf god. You said spellbound crocodile who lives on spells, you shall not carry off my spell. Chapter 32 drives back crocodiles from the 4 directions. The crocodile of the west, who lives on the never-resting stars, is told that his taboo is in the speaker, who has eaten the brow or skull of Osiris and is set. Another western crocodile is threatened with the serpent now inside the speaker, whose flame shall not approach. The crocodile of the east, who feeds on the eaters of filth, is driven back because his taboo is in the speaker, who advances as Osiris. Another eastern crocodile is again threatened with the serpent now. The crocodile of the south, who feeds on waste, garbage, and filth, is told to get back because his taboo is in the speaker, who is Sept, a god of the eastern delta and a local form of the Urlide sun god. Another southern crocodile is told that he will be fettered. The speaker's charm is among the reeds, and the speaker will not yield. The crocodile of the north, who feeds on what the hours leave, is told that his taboo is in the speaker, and that harmful emissions shall not fall on the speaker's head, for the speaker is Tem, the primeval god. Another northern crocodile is driven back because the scorpion, Otis, whom Budge identifies as Circuit, is inside the speaker, unborn. The speaker is Uechmurti, the green-eyed serpent god or goddess armed with great destructive power. The spell ends with a cosmic claim. Created things are in the hollow of the speaker's hand, and things not yet made are inside him. He is clothed in and supplied with the spells of Ra, above him and beneath him. He is Ra, self-protected, and no evil thing whatsoever shall overthrow him.
So Budge's Chapter 4 gives us the Book of the Dead as archive, theology, travel permit, courtroom speech, hymn book, amulet manual, and monster repellent. Its world is morally serious and magically practical at once. A heart must be innocent, yes, but it must also know the correct names, wear the right scarab, answer Thoth's question, and be prepared for an argumentative crocodile. I find that very human, the hope that truth will save us, plus the sensible habit of packing a few extra spells, just in case. We now come to the late, compressed, portable end of the Egyptian funerary tradition, not the grand Book of the Dead in all its breadth, but the shorter books made for people who still needed resurrection, protection, air, food, movement, justification, divine company, and a respectable passage through the next world, but perhaps did not have the budget for a full theological library under the bandages. I say that lightly, but Budge's point is serious. These little works are not scraps of superstition. They are carefully reduced religious instruments made to preserve what late Egyptian scribes thought mattered most.
Budge begins with the practical fact that only wealthy families could afford a full copy of the Great Book of the Dead. Whether the chapters were painted on coffins or written on papyrus, a competent scribe had to spend real time and skill on the work, and that made it costly. By the end of the 26th dynasty, Egyptians increasingly felt that not every chapter was equally necessary. Certain sections seemed essential for the resurrection of the body and the salvation of the soul, others could be omitted. So people began burying shorter selections with the dead. A little later, the scribes went further. They produced new short works that kept only the parts considered necessary to bring the body back to life. Budge says they rejected the older magical material and preserved the texts and formulas that belonged especially to the cult of Osiris, the first man who had risen from the dead. This is the theological center of the chapter. Late funerary religion is being tightened around Osiris. The deceased is not merely protected by spells, he is drawn into the pattern of Osiris' own death, vindication, and renewed life. One of the oldest substitutes for the full Book of the Dead was the Cheyenne Sensen, the Book of Breathings. Several copies survive in funerary papyri, and Budge gives translated sections from a British Museum papyrus made for a deceased man named Kershur, son of Tashin Atit. As always in these texts, the dead person is identified with Osiris. That is why the address begins Hail, Osiris Kershur. The name is not casual decoration. It means that Kershur is being treated ritually as an Osiris, a justified and revivified dead man. The Book of Breathings first declares Kershur pure. His heart is pure, the front and back of his body are pure, his inward parts have been cleansed with incense and natron, and no member of him is defective. He has been washed in the waters of the field of offerings, north of the field of the grasshoppers. The goddesses Uachet and Nekebet purify him at the 8th hour of night and the 8th hour of day. He is invited into the hall of truth because he is free from every offense and defect, and his name is Stone of Truth. It is a splendidly Egyptian mixture of moral status, ritual washing, cosmic geography, and exact scheduling. Then the text moves him into the next world. Kershur enters the Tuat, or other world, in a state of great purity. The goddesses of truth purify him in the great hall. Holy water has been poured over him in the hall of Keb, that is, the earth, and his body has been made pure in the hall of Shu, the heaven. He sees Ra when the sun sets in the form of Tem. Amen is near him and gives him air. Ta, who formed his limbs, is near him too. He enters the horizon with Ra, his soul is received into the Neshem boat of Osiris, his soul is made divine in the house of Keb, and he is made triumphant forever. Amen is near you and gives you air. Ta, who fashioned your members, is near you also. You enter the horizon with Ra, your soul is received into the boat of Osiris, and you are made triumphant forever and ever. The next section gives the great promise of the Book of Breathings. Kershur's name flourishes. His earthly body is established. His spirit body germinates as if death were a seed bed rather than an end. He is not driven away in heaven or on earth. His face shines before Ra, his soul lives before Amen, and his body is renewed before Osiris. He breathes the breath of life forever. His own soul makes offerings to him each day. His flesh is gathered onto his bones, and his form is restored as it was on earth. The dead man also receives the ordinary necessities of life, because eternity, sensibly enough, still has dining arrangements. He drinks into his body, eats with his mouth, and receives rations in company with the souls of the gods. Anubis protects him, and prevents him from being turned away from the gates of the Tuat. Thoth, the mighty lord of Kemenu, or Hermopolis, comes to him and writes the Book of Breathings with his own fingers. Because of that book, Kershur's soul breathes forever and his form is renewed with life upon earth. The passage keeps piling up restoration. Kershur is made divine with the souls of the gods. His heart is the heart of Ra and his limbs are the limbs of the great god. Amen is near to make him live again, and Upuat opens a prosperous road for him. He sees with his eyes, hears with his ears, speaks with his mouth, and walks with his legs. His soul has been made divine in the Tuat so that it may change itself into any form it pleases. He can smell at will the holy acacia of Ennu or Heliopolis. Each day he wakes and sees the light of Ra, each day he appears on earth. The book itself is his daily protection. Through the Book of Breathings of Thoth he draws breath every day, and through it his eyes behold the beams of the sun, god Aten. The goddess of truth vindicates him before Osiris, and her writings are on his tongue. Ra gives life to his soul, and the soul of Shu is in his nostrils. He is like Osiris, and his name is Osiris Kendi Amenti. His body lives in Tatu or Busiris, and his soul lives in heaven. His fragrance is that of the holy gods in Amentet, and his name is magnified like the names of the spirits of heaven. His soul lives through the Book of Breathings, and by that same book it is joined again to his body. Budge then notes what follows this material in the British Museum papyrus. There are praises of Kershur by the gods, a prayer by Kershur asking for offerings, and an extract from the negative confession, the declaration of innocence described earlier in the book. The work closes with an address to the gods. It says that Kershur is sinless, that he feeds and lives upon truth, that his deeds have satisfied the hearts of the gods, and that he has fed the hungry, given water to the thirsty, and clothed the naked. In other words, the short book still keeps the moral claims of Egyptian judgment. This is not merely a ticket stamp for the next world. Character is still being examined. Budge adds two important notes. First, the deceased is always supposed to be identified with Osiris. Second, a papyrus at Florence preserves a copy of Part 2 of the Book of Breathings. Its basic ideas are the same as Part 1, but the form is different. There the dead person addresses several gods by name and declares that he himself is those gods. I am Ra, I am Adam, I am Osiris, I am Horus, I am Thoth, and so on. To modern ears this can sound startling, but within the text it is a religious claim about participation in divine life, power, and identity after death. The next late work is the Book of Traversing Eternity, whose fullest known form Budge says is on a papyrus in Vienna. Its purpose is wonderfully clear. When the dead person's soul is armed with the power that this book gives, it can travel from one end of Egypt to the other. It can visit all the holy places, take part in the festivals, and enjoy communion not only with the gods and spirits gathered there, but also with the relatives and acquaintances whom it left alive on earth. A dead soul with a liturgical travel pass across the entire sacred landscape of Egypt. I confess, as afterlife arrangements go, it is rather magnificently organized. The object of the Book of Traversing Eternity is also the resurrection of the body. It opens by saying that the soul lives in heaven in the presence of Ra, the Ka has acquired the divine nature of the gods, and the body remains in the deep house, the tomb, in the presence of Osiris. The spirit body becomes glorious among the living. The descendants of the dead flourish on earth in the presence of Keb, on the dead person's seat among the living. The name is established by the utterance of those who have their being through the Book of Traversing Eternity. The dead comes forth by day and is joined to the sun god Aten. The text then lists the restored powers of the person. The deceased breathes, speaks, eats, drinks, sees, hears, and walks. Every organ of the body is in its proper place and performs its proper function. But the soul is not merely repaired, it is liberated. It floats in the air, hovers in the shadow, rises in the sky, follows the gods, travels with the stars, the decans, and the planets, and moves at will by night and by day, on earth and in heaven. Where the Book of Breathings is about air and bodily restoration, Traversing Eternity is about range, presence, movement, and sacred return. Budge next turns to works originally composed for recitation at the festivals of Osiris, and especially connected with his cult. 3 of these became very popular in the Graeco-Roman period. The Lamentations of Isis and Nethys, the Festival Songs of Isis and Nethys, and the Book of Making Splendid the Spirit of Osiris. They are not merely literary pieces. They are ritual performances, sung or recited at appointed times by appointed women before appointed priests with specified objects in the hands. The stage directions matter. The Lamentations of Isis and Nethys were recited on the 25th day of the 4th month of the season Akit, roughly October-November. 2 fair women performed the parts of Isis and Nethys. One had the name of Isis on her shoulder, the other, the name of Nethys. Each held a vessel of water in her right hand, and a Memphis cake of bread in her left. The purpose was to commemorate the resurrection of Osiris. The book was recited for a deceased person. It would make his spirit glorious, establish his body, make his Ka rejoice, give breath to his nostrils, and give air to his throat. The 2 women sang the sections alternately before the Kerheb and Sedum priests. Budge gives the first 2 sections from a Berlin papyrus. Isis begins by calling Osiris by the name and in begging him to come home. His enemy Set has perished. He calls him the beautiful youth and the beautiful boy. He asks him to look upon her, because she is the sister who loves him, and she tells him not to go far from her. She cannot see him, and her heart weeps for him. Her eyes follow him everywhere. He waits only to see him. It is good to see him. He calls him Nefer, true of word, and asks him to come to his beloved one, to his wife, to the lady of his house, to the sister born from the same mother. Come to your house, Owen. I am the sister who loves you. Do not go far from me. I cannot see you, and my heart weeps for you. The grief of Isis is cosmic as well as intimate. The faces of gods and men are turned toward Osiris, and all weep for him together. When she saw him, she cried out, weeping with a voice that pierced the heavens, but he did not hear. He repeats that she is the sister who loved him on earth, and that no one loved him more than his sister. Budge does not need to explain why this text endured. It is ritual theology, yes, but it is also a lament that any mourner could understand. Nethys then speaks. She calls Osiris the beautiful prince and tells him to come home. His heart may rejoice, because his enemies have ceased to exist. The two sisters are near him. They guard his bier and address him with tearful words while he lies prone upon it. Nethys asks him to look at the young women and speak to them as their sovereign lord. He asks him to destroy the misery in their hearts. The chiefs among gods and men look upon him, and she begs him to turn his face toward them, because at the sight of his face life comes to their faces. Nethys continues that the joy of their hearts is simply to see him. He names herself as his sister Nethys, who loves him. The fiend Seba has fallen and has no being. Nethys is with Osiris and acts as the protectress of his members forever and ever. That last detail is exactly what makes the lament more than grief. The sisters mourn him, but they also guard him, assemble him, and prepare the way for his restoration. The second work, the Festival Songs of Isis and Nethys, was sung during the great festival of Osiris in the 4th month of Akit. The festival lasted 5 days from the 22nd to the 26th day. This time the singers were 2 virgins with fillets of sheep's wool on their heads and tambourines in their hands. One was called Isis and the other Nethys. According to the rubrics in the British Museum papyrus, the sections were sung by both women together rather than alternately. The sample passage begins with an urgent call, "Come, come, run to me, O strong heart." The singers long to see the divine face of Osiris, because they do not see him. They ask him to clear the path, so that they may see him as they see Ra in heaven, when heaven unites with earth and darkness falls on the earth each day. Their hearts burn like fire at his escape from the fiend, and also when he turns his side toward them. They wish he would never turn it away. They call him the one who unites the 2 domains, North and South Egypt, and who turns back those who are on the roads. They seek him because they love him. The song then praises Osiris as active and victorious. He flies like a living being. He is the everlasting king. He has destroyed the fiend Amrek. He is king of the south and north, and he goes forth from Tachesert. The singers ask that there never be a moment when they do not fill his heart. They call him their divine brother, their lord who goes forth from Akert. Their arms are raised to protect him. They call him husband, brother, lord of love, and ask him to come in peace into his house. I seek to see you because of my love for you. My arms are raised to protect you, O you whom I love. I love you, O husband, brother, lord of love. Come in peace into your house. The passage closes with a brilliant description of the god's beauty. His hair is like turquoise as he comes from the fields of turquoise. His hair is like the finest lapis, lazuli, and he himself is bluer than his hair. His skin and body are like southern alabaster, his bones are silver, the perfume of his hair is like fresh myrrh, and his skull is lapis, lazuli. It is gorgeous, formal, and strange in the best sense. The dead and restored god imagined as precious stone, fragrance, radiance, and mineral permanence. Third work is the book of making splendid the spirit of Osiris. It too was sung at the great festival of Osiris, held in November-December at Abydos and in other major Egyptian towns. Budge says that if it was sung on behalf of any man, it secured for that man's soul and spirit resurrection and life, constantly renewed. The book is written in hieratic and survives in a papyrus in Paris. The extract begins, like the Lamentations, with a call for Osiris to come home. Come to your house, Owen. Come to your house, O beautiful bull, lord of men and women, beloved one, lord of women. He is called Beautiful Face, chief of Akert, prince, Kediamentu, and Nefer, true of word. All hearts are said to be drunk with love of him. The hands of men and gods are lifted up and seek him like the hands of a baby stretched out to its mother. He is asked to come to them because their hearts are sad, and to make them rejoice. The coming of Osiris reverses the old catastrophe. The lands of Horus exult, and the domains of Set are overthrown because they fear him. Isis then speaks as his sister. No god and no goddess, she says, have done for him what she has done. She, a woman, made a male child for him because she desired his name to live upon the earth. His divine essence was in her body, and she brought the child forth on the ground. That child, Horus, pleaded his case, healed his suffering, and decreed the destruction of the one who caused it. Set fell beneath his knife, and the Smami fiends of Set followed him. The throne of the earth, God belongs to Osiris, the beloved son. This then turns from vindication to healing. There is health in Osiris, members. His wounds are healed. His sufferings are relieved, and he will never groan again in pain. The sisters ask him to come to them, because their hearts will live when he comes. Men will cry out to him, and women will weep glad tears at his coming. Here again grief has become restoration. The same voices that mourn the god also summon him into renewed life. The final part of the extract expands Osiris into a life, giving cosmic power. The Nile appears at the command of his mouth. He makes men live on the effluxes that proceed from his members, and he makes every field flourish. When he comes, what is dead springs into life, and the plants in the marshes blossom. He is Lord of millions of years, sustainer of wild creatures, and Lord of cattle. Every created thing has its existence from him. What is in the earth is his, what is in the heavens is his, what is in the waters is his. The extract ends by naming Osiris as Lord of truth and hater of sinners, who overthrows sinners in their sins. The goddesses of truth are with him and never leave him. No sinful man can approach the place where he is. Everything belonging to life and death belongs to him, and so does everything concerning humankind. That is a very large claim indeed. Osiris as dead king, restored body, moral judge, source of vegetation, lord of water, and master of human destiny. Budge closes the chapter with the Roman period. During the Roman occupation of Egypt, the three last named works, the Lamentations, the Festival Songs, and the Book of Making Splendid the Spirit of Osiris, were abridged still further. In the end, the texts thought essential for salvation were written on small sheets of papyrus only about 9 to 12 inches high and 5 to 10 inches wide. The great funerary library had become a small, portable packet of indispensable words.
What I find moving in this chapter is not decline, but concentration. The old Book of the Dead has not vanished, it has been distilled. Breath, food, speech, movement, purity, memory, family, festivals, the loving voices of Isis and Nephthys, the triumph of Osiris, the moral demand to feed the hungry and clothe the naked, all of it is pressed into smaller and smaller forms. Late Egypt did not stop caring about the next world. It learned to carry eternity on a sheet of papyrus small enough to hold in the hand. We come now to the Egyptian story of creation, and I should warn you at once that Egypt, being Egypt, does not give us one tidy little classroom diagram with arrows and labels and a helpful caption saying, in effect, start here. But begins with a sensible observation. A people so intensely concerned with resurrection, immortality, heaven, and the life after death must have thought deeply about what heaven was, who made it, and how everything began. But they were far more ready to describe paradise and the blessed dead than to write one connected, official account of creation itself. This is not vagueness. It is theology being allowed to breathe.
Budge says that the Egyptian religious texts already examined have shown theologians quite willing to describe heaven, the life of the blessed, and the powers and qualities of the gods. Yet when it came to the origin of creation, and even more to the origin of the Creator, they seem to have been cautious. Each great cult proclaimed its own god as creator of all, and each major religious center preserved its own local explanation. At Heliopolis, the creator was Atum or Tem, and in later usage Ra. At Memphis, he was Ta. At Hermopolis, he was Thoth. At Thebes, he was Amen or Ammon. In other words, creation was not a single file and cabinet entry. It was a living religious inheritance, expressed differently in different sacred cities. For Budge, writing from the evidence available to him, only one native Egyptian work had yet been found that gave a connected account of the creation and the way it was carried out. This was British Museum Papyrus No. 10,188. The manuscript itself was written around 305 B.C., which is late by Egyptian standards, although one must remember that with Egypt late can still mean older than many things we rather complacently call ancient. Budge stresses that the forms of the texts are late, but the subject matter is thousands of years older. The creation story appears in the last work contained in that papyrus. Its title, in plain English, is the Book of Overthrowing Apep, the enemy of Ra, the enemy of Un-Nefer, that is, Osiris. It was not a philosophical essay in the modern sense. It was a liturgy, recited at appointed times of day and night in the great temple of Amen-Ra at Thebes. Its purpose was practical and cosmic, to stop the monster Apep from blocking the sunrise. Apep was imagined as lying in wait for the sun every day just before dawn, intending to fight and overthrow him. When the sun god reached the place where Apep waited, he first cast a spell on the monster, making him helpless. Then the god turned his fiery rays upon him, shriveling him up, and the divine fire consumed him entirely. This is sunrise as victory, morning as the defeat of chaos. I confess it gives rather more grandeur to opening the curtains. In the temple of Amen-Ra, the priests recited spells that were believed to help the sun god burn up Apep. They also burned wax figures of the monster in specially prepared fires. As they did so, they uttered curses, trampled the figures underfoot, and defiled them. These rites were not merely symbolic theater. They were believed to assist the daily triumph of light, and even to affect weather, to break up rain clouds, scatter fog and mist, dissipate thunderstorms, and help the sun rise over the world in a clear sky. Budge explains Apep as a form of Set, the god associated here with evil of every kind. Apep's allies were the red fiends, the black fiends, and all the powers of darkness. And in the midst of this great mass of magical spells, the papyrus preserves two copies of another text, the Book of Knowing How Ra Came into Being and of Overthrowing Apep. One copy is somewhat fuller than the other, but in substance they agree. The opening line says that the words of this book were spoken by the god Nibur-Cher. Budge glosses this name as the Lord to the uttermost limit, or, more simply, God himself. He adds that Egyptian Christians, the Copts, use this name in their own religious writings as an equivalent for God Almighty, the Lord of all, the God of the universe. So the voice we are about to hear is not merely one God among others in a crowded divine household. It is the voice of the Creator speaking about his own beginning. I am the creator of what has come into being. I myself came into being in the form of the god Khepra. I came into being in primeval time. I formed myself out of the primeval matter. I made myself out of the substance that existed in the beginning. A footnote matters here. Budge says that the second version of the text gives the name of Nebert-R as Osiris, that is, Osiris, and calls him the oldest god of all. This is one of those Egyptian theological identifications that can make the modern reader reach for a pencil and a cold towel. The point is not that the tradition has become careless. The point is that ancient Egyptian religion could identify divine forms with one another while still preserving their distinct names, functions, and histories. At the beginning, nothing existed except the great primeval watery mass called Nu. Yet within Nu lay the germs of everything that would later come into being. There was no heaven, no earth, and no place where the god could stand. Indeed, Budge says, nothing existed except the god. The god himself says, with magnificent simplicity, I was alone. Nebert-R first created himself by uttering his own name as a word of power. When the name was spoken, his visible form appeared. Then he uttered another word of power, and by it his soul, his Ba, came into being. His soul worked together with his heart or mind, his Ab. Before every act of creation, Nebert-R or his visible form Khepra first thought out what shape the thing to be created should have. Then he spoke its name, and the thing itself appeared, whether in heaven or on earth. This is creation by mind and speech. The creator imagines the form, utters the name, and the name thing exists. There is no workshop, no raw timber stacked in the corner, no committee of lesser deities looking anxious over a clay model. There is thought, word, and manifestation. Budge is careful to keep the mechanism before us. The heart plans, the voice names, and the world comes forth. To fill the heaven, or the place where he lived, the god next produced two deities from his own body and from his shadow, Shu and Tefnut. Together with Nebert-R, or Khepra, they form the first triad of gods. Budge phrases the theology as the one god becoming three, or as he explains it for his readers, the one god having three aspects, each quite distinct from the others. He adds that the tradition of the begetting of Shu and Tefnut is already as old as the pyramid texts, since it appears in the text of Pepi I. The next creative act brought forth the eye of Nebert-R, later identified with Ra. The eye emerged from the waters of Nu, and light shone upon them. Then Shu and Tefnut united and produced Kheb, the earth, god, and Nut, the sky, goddess. The family of creation is now beginning to take shape. Creator, air and moisture, earth and sky, with light shining over the primeval waters. The text then refers to some calamity that befell the eye of Nebert-R or of Khepra, but Budge says its nature is not clear. Whatever happened, the eye became obscured and stopped giving light. This period of darkness is, naturally enough, night. To remedy the recurring inconvenience of darkness, the god made a second eye, the moon, and set it in the heavens. The greater eye ruled the day, the lesser eye ruled the night. One result of this daily darkness was that Nut, the sky goddess, descended each evening to Kheb, the earth god. Budge does not expand the point here, but he lets the image stand. Night is the meeting of sky and earth, the heavens bending down at evening. It is both cosmology and poetry, and one suspects the Egyptians would not have felt the need to divide those quite so sharply as we do. The next gods and goddesses created were five: Osiris, Horus, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. Osiris married Isis, and their son was called Horus. Set married Nephthys, though their son Anpu or Anubis is not mentioned in this text. Osiris became the great ancestor god of Egypt, and Budge says he was a reincarnation of his great-grandfather. Human beings came into existence from tears. Men and women were formed from the tears that fell from the eye of Khepra, or the sun god, upon his body. Budge notes that the ancient Egyptian word for men closely resembled, in both form and sound, the word for tears. This is one of those theological etymologies in which language and myth clasp hands. Humanity is born from the gods weeping, and the word itself seems to remember it. Plants, vegetables, herbs, and trees came from another source. The light of the moon falling upon the earth. The text does not give a separate special creation for the beasts of the field. But the god states clearly that he created the children of the earth, or creeping things of every kind, and Budge thinks quadrupeds were probably included in this class. Though the living world is completed, human beings from divine tears, vegetation from moonlight, and the creatures of the earth from the Creator's broader act of making. The men and women, and all the other living creatures made at that first time by Nebert-R or Khepra, then reproduced their own species, each in its own way. By this process the earth became filled with their descendants, as Budge says, just as we see it in the present day. The creation story has moved from the lonely god in the waters of Nu to a populated earth, with gods, lights, sky, earth, plants, people, and living creatures all in place. Budge closes by underlining the great age of the legend. Its elements, he says, are very, very old, and the way they are arranged in this text suggests the influence of the priests of Heliopolis. It is especially interesting to him that only very ancient gods appear as powers of creation. These gods were certainly worshipped for many centuries before the priests of Heliopolis developed their sun god cult and identified their own god with the older gods of Egypt. Just as striking is who does not appear. Ta and Amen, gods of immense importance in later Egyptian religion, are not mentioned at all, even though Ta of Memphis and Amen of Thebes had enormous reputations by the period when this papyrus was copied in 305 BC. For Budge, their absence is another sign that the underlying tradition is older than the manuscript that preserves it.
So that is Budge's Chapter 6, not a modern theory of origins, and not a single imperial creed, but an ancient Egyptian creation tradition preserved inside a liturgy against Apep, the enemy of sunrise. Its creator is Neber-Teacher, appearing as Khepera alone in Nu, making himself by naming himself, and then bringing all things into being by thought and speech. Light emerges, the first gods appear, earth and sky are born, the two eyes rule day and night, humanity springs from tears, plants from moonlight, and the old gods of Egypt stand at the beginning of the world. It is grand, strange, careful, and wonderfully Egyptian, creation as theology, language, ritual, and mourning all at once. So ends Part 2, and our descent through the Egyptian afterlife and back to the morning of creation. Next time we turn from gods and the dead to stories and to history, the legends the Egyptians told about their own gods, and the great inscriptions in which their kings recorded themselves forever. Thank you for sitting up late in the library with me. Good night.